The old tavern at the edge of the village is the only place a weary traveler could find solace. Being closer to the dense forest where the trading routes start, and a border village, the tavern was never empty. Bogdan, the innkeeper, was always in a jolly mood, as he would partake in the day's celebrations with his patrons. His day would start as early as the first light, and his day would always end a little bit closer to the opening time. Bogdan never saw this as a problem, as he was the self-appointed merrymaker in the village. He would go to the nearby forest to grab fresh herbs before starting his day and use them in his brewing and cooking. He's been doing this for over 50 years, and nothing has changed in his routine unless an occasional wild boar attack or a grizzly blocking his path, which he shrugged off as an occupational hazard. His wife stopped complaining years ago, as she got accustomed to his way of life. He was on his way back when he saw a man and a woman walking along the trail leading to the old forest. The woman looked pale, and the man looked exhausted. They both looked at Bogdan and, with a nod, entered the forest path leading towards the trade routes. "Is that a child in that woman's sack?" Bogdan thought to himself, and he called after them. The two travelers stopped and turned towards the innkeeper. The man was the first to speak. "You called us, good sir?" Bogdan was taken aback a bit. He has heard many accents in his day, but never has he heard such an accent before. It was heavy but crisp, melodious with a subtle hint of authority. Yes, I did. May I ask where you are headed? It's not my business to inquire, but no one enters the woods without a carriage. At least a pony to carry your luggage, and your lady can rest her poor legs on the road." Bogdan felt a shiver running down his spine as he was talking. The couple was staring at him with keen eyes, as if they were measuring him out. The old innkeeper cursed his curiosity, thinking he should have just let them be and minded his business. "We are traveling towards the northern valley. It's a few days' walk from here, and we have our supplies. As for a horse and a carriage, we have no means to pay for them." "Northern valley, you say?" Bogdan said. "There's nothing there, just woods and the river that carries ice-cold water from the mountains. You can't grow anything there, and it's not close to the trading routes or any village or town." In his head he is still cursing his curiosity. This is none of my business, he thought. He didn't stop there, though. He offered the couple to come with him and stay at the inn, and he would speak to the caravaneers to see if he could get them at least halfway on the route. The woman nodded towards the husband, and he agreed to comply. Bogdan felt relieved now that the conversation was over, and jolly cause he felt as if he had done something charitable other than making drunkards happy the whole day. "What you both need is something hot to eat and a bed to sleep on," the innkeeper said as he was entering his backyard from the small gate located near the stables. The man reached for his tunic as if to grab his money pouch, and Bogdan stopped him immediately. No, your money is no good here. Rest well, because the journey ahead is treacherous." "My wife and I are more than willing to help anyone in need, especially a young couple with a child." Old Bogdan and his wife had a son who was taken from them too soon, and they never shied away from helping parents with young children. The innkeeper's wife was tending her vegetable patches when the group entered the backyard, and she flew into action the moment she saw the woman carrying a child. After a hot bath and a meal, the woman felt relieved. Bogdan told his wife Matilda that the couple is heading towards the northern valley, a dark and desolate land with a newborn. Matilda was shocked to hear this, and she was about to protest, but old Bogdan stopped her. "Let me talk to them, but first let them rest. I don't think they have slept on a bed for a considerable time. Let them rest." While preparing the meals for the day, both were engaged in a deep conversation. Bogdan was trying to explain what he felt during the encounter, and he told Matilda, his wife, who knew him almost all her life, that he had never felt such intimidation from anyone. Matilda couldn't understand because the man had spoken only a few words and the woman hadn't said a word yet. Before she finished her thoughts, the man came to the kitchen to ask Bogdan about the caravans. His way of speaking has softened a little bit as he was trying to talk in Bogdan's dialect, but that hint of authority was still there. "It's too early. They all went to bed a few hours ago. They won't leave for another 3 days. Bogdan noticed the change in the man's face and quickly changed the subject, introduced himself and his wife, and asked for the man's name. The man was lost in his thoughts for a while and asked whether he could help the innkeeper in any way, as for the payment for staying at the inn for 3 days. "So you have decided to stay, then," Matilda said with a sigh of relief. "Son, where you are headed, there's nothing there for you, especially with the baby, and your wife needs help in the first few months." She was waiting for a reply and got none in return. The man is still lost in his thoughts and moved towards the furnace. He sat down and looked at Bogdan. "I'm sorry I was being impolite. My name is Thragan, and my wife is Ailira. We hail from the Drocht Vale. As you know, the kingdom of the Drocht is in chaos, and we had to flee with what we could grab. Both my wife and I are capable of weathering the storm. Our son will have to adopt too, if we are to survive." Thragan shifted his balance and leaned towards his right knee. His gaze was fixed on the burning flames. "We lost everything and everyone we knew. That's why we are going to the Northern Valley for a fresh start. I've heard there are small tribes living closer to the old forests." Bogdan measured the man. He is at least 6 feet tall, and his body is built like a bull. His eyes were wary but sharp, piercing through everything he gazed upon. He might be able to survive the harsh winters up in the Northern Valley, he thought. People of Drocht are strong and capable. They always had to defend their cities from never-ending sieges and dry weather throughout the year. But his wife and the child might not survive up there. "You can help Martin, our stable hand. 3 wagons need a bit of work, and of course the horses. I have ordered some supplies. It'll be delivered before noon, and you can start there. In the meantime, if you could chop some wood for the furnace, I would really appreciate it." With a nod, Thragan stood up and walked towards the door. Before he left, Bogdan said, "Only because you asked otherwise. I can manage all these. You can get some rest," with a slight wave. Thragan disappeared. Matilda was kneading the dough for the bread quietly during the conversation, and she looked at Bogdan. With a shrug, Bogdan said, "I tried. His mind is made up." Ailira changed the soiled napkins and cleaned the baby. After swaddling, she nursed him while gently stroking his baby hair. It's golden, and it looks as if he is wearing a crown. His large blue eyes wandered through the room. For a newborn, this baby is too quiet and observant, although the old couple downstairs thought it was because the baby was exhausted. Ailira knew he was like this since he was born. She tried to block the memories of the day and things that happened after that, as it brought her pain. She could hear the noises from downstairs, and people were slowly starting their day. She could hear the boisterous laugh of the innkeeper. Although she wanted to slip out of the village before the first light of the day, she knew she and the baby needed rest. Thragan was at his breaking point, too. Ever since they left Drocht Valley, they traveled day and night. Even if they stopped, that was to replenish their supplies. Now that they are far away from their homeland, she could finally rest. In a few more days, we'll be in a safe place, she thought. Thragan entered the room and closed the door behind him. He removed his boots so they won't make any noise. Bogdan and his wife want us to stay for a few days. 3 days, to be exact. The caravans aren't leaving till then. Elira looked at the baby who had fallen asleep with his small lips covering her nipple. Yes, we need to rest up. We left fortnight back, and we didn't stop to rest. Baby is strong, but I don't want to risk it. If we were followed, they would have caught up with us by now. I'm doing everything I can to shield us. Let's not talk more about what happened in Drocht. She looked at Thragan. He nodded in agreement. Did you tell the old couple where we are from? They are kind-hearted and concerned about you and the baby. I didn't tell much, just that we are from Drocht, that's all. Soon there will be more refugees traveling towards the north through these roads. It won't be a problem. Thragan looked at the baby who was sleeping in the cot. We have to shave his head, Elira said. His golden curls will attract unnecessary attention to us. We can't cover him all the time, at least till we get to the northern valley. Thragan nodded again in agreement. He turned to leave. I promised to help the innkeeper. You get some rest. When he arrived at the stables, there was a man, maybe in his late 30s, shoveling manure into a cart. He straightened his back and indicated another shovel at the corner. Thragan started to shovel manure and watched as the man left the stable and started to work on the wagons. Once done, Thragan went near the half-fence dividing the stalls and asked the stableman whether he needed help. He looked up and nodded without saying a word. Thragan didn't want to say anything. He picked up a bucket that contained a mixture of pine tar and meat grease. He started to lubricate the axles, while the man next to him used a heavy wagon jack to lift the wagon. The entire afternoon was spent fixing the damaged wagons and readying them for the journey ahead and tending to the horses. The stable hand looked around and realized his work was done for the day and looked at Thragan and finally spoke. Care for some ale? Matilda brought smoked beef, bread, and ale for the 2 men waiting outside, covered in grease and manure. Aren't you going to clean up first? She asked, knowing the answer was a resounding no. The stable hand was the first to speak. I'm Martin. I heard you are from Drocht Valley. Terrible business what's happening down there. Thragan nodded in silence. I'm Thragan. We got out at the first signs of trouble. It all happened so fast we couldn't even get our wagon out. Martin stared at the gathering storm clouds in the east. I'm sure things will go back to how it was once the dust is settled. People will get used to the new order, and it will be as if nothing ever happened. Martin was right, Thragan thought. The commoners will always get used to the new way of life. They don't worry themselves with the politics of the monarchy as long as they have the means to survive. I was born here, in this small village, Martin said. It's so insignificant, although it's a broader village. They haven't even named it. I like it that way because when you hear what's happening in the cities beyond, life here is peaceful. Is Bogdan from around? Asked Thragan. No, he was working for a caravaneer when he was a teenager and often frequented the trade routes towards the northern kingdom through here. That's when he met Matilda. Her father owned this inn before Bogdan. I'd better get back. Do you need help tomorrow? Thragan asked Martin. Yes, we'll start as early as possible. I have to go pick up some more supplies for the axles on the other 2 wagons, Martin replied, gulping down the remaining ale from the jug. Matilda was helping Elira to carry the belongings to the adjacent building where the couple lived. The inn was getting noisier, and it will only get worse. Thragan looked at his wife, and she gestured that she had everything under control. 2 young girls were working tirelessly in the kitchen, and another 2 were managing the front while Bogdan was merrymaking with the caravaneers. Thragan was standing at a distance, engaging in a conversation with Martin. when Bogtan waved at both of them. "These are the caravaneers I told you about. They have traveled these trade routes many times. They know which roads are safe during this time of the year." The head caravaneer was a middle-aged man with a weather-worn face. The wrinkles outlined his face were telling a story of the years of hardships this man had endured. His gaze was keen and inquiring. After a brief exchange of pleasantries, Caravaneer shared his thoughts. "You can take the stone-paved road until you reach the bridge. From there, take the path leading up to Fork Point. That's about 5 leagues from here. Once you reach Fork Point, you have to take the road towards the Pine Burrow, and it's another 10 leagues to the northern valley once you reach the burrow. I could take you halfway, but unfortunately my wagons are full. You are welcome to ride behind me if you have a horse carriage." Thregan looked at Bogtan when he said, "Of course, a carriage will be ready." "All right then. It's settled on the first light of the 3rd day from today. We'll be off." With that remark, the head caravaneer got back to drinking and merrymaking. Bogtan left the table after Martin and Thregan and led them to the kitchen and towards the backyard. "Look, I didn't think he would say that. I was sure he was going to take you with them. Nothing has changed. We just have to find a horse and a small carriage." Bogtan was twitching nervously while looking around. "I remember Sven had a run-down carriage parked near his mill. He hasn't used it for years, and I can talk to him and see whether we can borrow it," Martin said. Thregan was silent for a while, and finally spoke. "I'm sorry I can't burden you with all these. I can't return the carriage, which means I have to buy it. As I said earlier, I don't have the means to pay for it, nor for a horse. I can't raise that much money on 3 days. Martin, first thing tomorrow, you go talk to Sven and tell him I need the carriage, and he owes me a favor. I'll worry about the horse," Bogtan said with a note of conclusion in his voice. Martin nodded and bid good night to both of them and left. Bogtan gestured towards Thregan, and both started to walk towards the house. "Son, you'll find a way to repay me when you can, even if you don't consider this a gift from a fellow countryman. I grew up near the citadel of Drocht. After becoming an apprentice for the royal caravaneer, I developed a taste for traveling far and wide. That was until I met my Matilda. You don't speak like the common folk from the valley, and you both carry yourselves differently. I can see you are fleeing, and that's why you want to hide in the northern valley. Whatever you are running away from, it won't follow you there. My wife and I were working in the citadel at the Tower of the Mystics," Thregan said. "I'm a forager, and my wife is a healer. First, we heard the talk of change, and how the monarchy is keeping everyone enslaved. Then came the debates and talk of change. When it happened fast. Agents from the monarchy seized the tower, and both sides suffered. We were preparing for this moment, and when everything came crumbling down, we fled." Bogtan was silent for a while and cleared his throat. "Better you keep this to yourself. What's happening in the east does not matter to the folks living down here, and better keep your identities hidden." Elira was pacing around the cot, while slowly weaving 2 silver threads into a knot. The air around her felt heavy, and a faint glow was emitting from the threads. Whenever she felt uneasy, she used to bind these knots while chanting the old words of protection since she was a child. When they left the citadel, she wasn't sure they were going to survive. All she could remember was clutching the baby in one hand and blocking the hexes from the other, while Thregan cut down a bloody path for them to escape. She didn't remember who came in front of them, friend or foe. They pushed them back with everything they got. She created powerful, protective talismans months ahead, and in secret. All that matters is that the baby survives. When Thragan entered the room, she knew what she was feeling. The unease and the heaviness in the air weren't just her overprotectiveness. "What is the matter?" she asked. "Did something happen?" Thragan sat down in the armchair, stretched his legs, and recounted what happened after he left. "I felt it. The more we stay, the more we expose ourselves. My talismans can shield us, but not other people's thoughts. If someone is looking for us, it's just a matter of time before they come across this village." Thragan was deep in his thoughts. She is right. We can't risk exposure. If Martin manages to acquire the carriage, we will leave immediately. I got us this far. I can get you to the valley on my own. Let's get some rest. Hopefully we will be able to leave the day after. Neither of them could sleep that night. The very thought of capture and losing the child kept haunting them. The moment birds started to chirp outside, Thragan got up to leave. Elira walked him to the door. "With or without the carriage, we are leaving today. These poor people will have to suffer if we stay. I'll keep everything ready." Thragan nodded and left the room. "Good morrow!" Matilda greeted Thragan with a warm smile. Bogtan entered the kitchen carrying a heavy bucket filled with meat and sausages. "Martin is in the shed. Grab something to eat first. He got the carriage. She's a bit of a doer-upper, but she'll manage." Thragan explained the urgency of the matter and that they are planning to leave on their own. Matilda's expression changed, but she didn't say anything. Martin greeted Thragan and showed him the carriage, which was more than enough for their purpose. "We have to replace the back axle and repair the tires. Undercarriage is a bit rotten, but it will hold unless you pack a heavy load." "How long will it take?" Thragan asked. "You can have it by the end of the day. As for the horse, Bogtan is giving one of his." The whole village was in an uproar when the first group of refugees arrived. The monarchy has fallen, Drock Citadel is in ruins, and people are fleeing the valley. A group of caravaneers arrived at the village with refugees bearing the sad news. Bogtan came running towards the stable, waving at Martin and Thragan. After sharing the news, he said, "Pack your things immediately. There's not enough time left to spare. There will be more, and you can't risk letting anyone recognize you." Martin felt the urgency, and he hurried to ready the horse. Matilda has prepared some dried furets and nuts along with bread and smoked meat. Bogtan carried 2 sacks of wheat flour and other condiments. While everything had been loaded into the carriage, Matilda arrived with a small bundle. "I got these for the baby, some wool blankets and clothes. You will need them once you are there." Elira hugged Matilda, then thanked both Matilda and Bogtan for taking them in and for helping them. Once the carriage was loaded and the horse was done putting to, Martin shook hands with Thragan and nodded. Bogtan and Matilda were visibly distraught to see them go, as if they were parting with their own children and their grandson. Among the hustle and bustle on the streets, the small carriage carrying the 3 slowly moved forward. Thragan closed the canopy flaps before giving the signal for the horse to move. He wore a heavy cowl covering his face. He waved at his newfound friends before turning to the stone-paved road, beginning the long journey ahead. He felt the vibrations behind him. Elira has begun to chant her protective spells. He lowered his head and avoided the eyes of any onlookers. Everyone in the village had gathered near the village hall, helping the refugees and trying to learn more about the war in the east. Thragan touched the hilt of his long sword and the talisman he was wearing around his neck. He took a deep breath and touched the horse's back and murmured, "Steady as we go. Long way ahead of us." The horse neighed as if he understood the command. It was almost midnight when they reached Fork Point, and there were a few caravans parked in the nearby field. "We got company," Thragan said to Elira in a hushed tone. Elira quickly cast a silence spell so that no one could hear any sound from the carriage. Thragan parked the carriage not too far from the road and not too close to the other caravans. He jumped down and walked towards the bonfire in the middle of the field. Few caravaneers were standing guard, and they all looked a bit surprised. They weren't expecting anyone around this time of day. "Hail, stranger, safe travels under the sun and moon," Thragan replied. "May the ancestors walk beside you." The caravaneers invited him to sit beside them near the fire, where they inquired about his destination. "I'm taking the northbound path through the Pine Burrow. My cousins are waiting for me there. We are taking fur coats and tools used for farming. We bring back rare herbs used for medicine. You can earn a fortune if you know your way around the icy river. Some herbs growing there can heal any wound," said one of the caravaneers. "I once got my hands on some, but by the time I reached civilization, almost all of it was rotten or withered away. But an apothecary paid me handsomely for what remained. Yes, that's the intention. I got these fur from Elendor, far superior to what they have up there. They don't have proper iron forging. These tools will be useful if they are to farm those desolate lands," said Thragan. "Are you going to meet the tribes over there?" one of the caravan guards asked with a genuine look of awe. "Yes, that's where I'm going," said Thragan. "I have done this a few times before. This time I actually have something they want. Hopefully they'll agree to share the land with us until we find the herbs we are looking for." The caravaneers felt silent. They looked like simple folks who were working hard to earn a living. Thragan stood up, thanked the caravaneers for their hospitality, and left the bonfire. After reaching the carriage, he looked behind one more time to ensure no one was looking at him. He climbed up and told Elira what happened. He reassured her that no one recognized him. "We'll let the horse rest for a bit longer, and then leave. We can't take the risk of losing the horse," Thragan said, and went outside to keep watch. Thragan saw 2 men huddled near the fire, and others were fast asleep. He slowly took the reins and guided the carriage towards the road ahead. Although it was dark, Elira had made the 2 lamps hanging from either side of the carriage glow brighter, lighting up the path ahead. They have traveled about 2 leagues down the road. The horse came to a sudden stop, and it was spooked by something. Thragan asked Elira to be ready. "It could be nothing, maybe a mountain lion or a large boar, but I will check." Thragan took one of the lanterns in one hand and his long sword in the other. He walked a few paces and stopped. He felt it too. Something is there ahead of the road. Not an animal, nor a human. He traced his steps towards the carriage without turning his back towards the dark. His keen eyes were piercing the darkness of the night. The dense canopy above is blocking the stars. The horse started to get restless. Elira reached and touched the horse, which calmed it down. She was murmuring a protective spell while tracing some symbols onto the horse's back. "What do you think it is?" Thragan could hear Elira's thoughts. "Whatever it is, it's not moving." He let his thoughts answer her. In the shadows ahead, a terrifying ghostly figure emerged, a tall, shrouded creature draped in tattered flowing fabric that obscures its face. It gripped a worn sword and appeared to glide above the ground, surrounded by faint mist and darkness. The creature lunged forward, preparing to attack the carriage. Thragan, with the sword drawn, stood between the carriage and the figure. Before he acted, he felt Elira touching his shoulder. She stood beside him, channeling powerful magic, bright blue-white lightning arcs between her raised hands. A thin, glowing silver thread of energy connects her body to the carriage behind them. No blade can strike it down. It'll only make it angrier, Elira said. She channeled her energy and cast lightning arcs at the approaching creature. It drew its sword and lunged at them. The area was filled with the stench of decay. Thragen parried the attack and struck the creature with a powerful kick to its abdomen. The creature shrieked and lunged at them again, this time swinging the long sword it carried, making the air around them drawn towards it. Elira cast a hex so powerful that it illuminated the whole area for a brief moment. The creature was thrown off balance and crashed into a tree. Before it regained its posture, Thragen turned on his heel and struck a devastating blow, hitting its head. The creature shrieked. Elira was right. This action only seems to anger it, not harm it in any way. Both swords clashed at once, sending vibrations rippling through the forest. Blow after blow, he tried to push forward, keeping the thing at bay, giving Elira enough space to conjure. Thragen brought his sword back and aligned the blade, ready to run it through. At this precise moment, Elira sent a lightning arc that struck the blade and illuminated it with bright blue-white lightning. Thragen ran the blade into the creature's chest, which made it scream in agonizing pain. With a swift swirl, it glided upwards and disappeared into the night, leaving the stench of decay behind. Thragen fell to his knees. He felt as if he was drained of energy. Elira quickly dragged him near the carriage and gave him water. "Will it be back?" Thragen asked. "It will," Elira said. "We have to move. Night is its domain. Whatever drew it here will bind it to us. I can ward it off, but not here." The horse has recovered as if it felt safe with the new owners. Thragen risked the maximum speed he could drive the carriage without damaging the axles or the iron wheels. The baby was sound asleep under talismans and the protective spells Elira had cast. Elira looked at the baby. Her whole body was drenched in sweat, and her hands were aching. Elira never had to cast such devastating hexes all her life. Tonight she had to protect the ones she loved and ward off a creature that could have ended everything they fought for. They both rode silently, keeping their wits about them. They knew the danger was still lurking in the shadows. "That was a Drakthol, wasn't it?" Thragen asked. "I have read about them. They never leave the caves they are bound to, protecting those who have created them." "If a Drakthol is roaming freely, the rumors are true," said Elira. "We must get to the valley as fast as possible. We have to get to work. Nothing else matters. We have to save the child." They arrived at the pine burrow but kept on moving forward. They rode for a few more hours when they saw the first light of the day, giving them hope. "Let's stop here. The horse needs rest," Thragen said. He felt weak from the last encounter, but didn't want to worry Elira too much. Once they stopped, Elira boiled some water using a simple spell. She didn't want to get a fire going to cook, as the smoke and the smell could attract something. Thragen removed the harness and let the horse drink from a nearby stream. Bogdan has prepared a mixture of straw and oats for the horse to eat. He sat next to Elira, where she had prepared some cold cuts from beef, bread, and tea. They both ate silently. The night's events made them realize the dangers that would come their way, and at the same time, it made them look at each other with renewed respect. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and join the journey.